Welcome to your daily dose of theological German. We are working our way through an article entitled, Where Does God Dwell? Now, before we get started translating, I want to draw your attention to a couple of compound words which could give you some trouble. The first half is straightforward enough. In this case, you would translate it as temple, and in this case, this is going to be translated as palace. But the second half in both cases is the same word, Anlage, and that one has got a bit more nuance to it, and so you'll want to look in a dictionary and try to get the best sense. When you look up this word in the dictionary, you will notice that it can take on a variety of different kinds of senses. Installation is one. So if you think about like a military installation, you're obviously talking about some kind of building complex. Establishment, you can see how it would be semantically related, building, right? But then you also have things like arrangement and disposition, which obviously would not apply necessarily to buildings, certainly not exclusively. And so you want to think about the context that you're in and try to get the best sense for that. In this case, it's going to be clear from the context that we're talking about the shape and size and features like that to do with the temple. And so something like layout is probably going to be the meaning or the sense of this word that we want. And so you can then go back and see how that fits into the sentence. So let's go ahead and start translating. The temple layout corresponded to no magnificent palace layout. Now, in English, we typically will negate verbs as opposed to putting a negative in front of the nominal group like that. And so you might prefer to translate this as something like the temple layout did not correspond to a magnificent palace layout. Now, you may notice in this second clause that there is no verb apparently anywhere. That is because the verb is elided and you're actually supposed to supply the verb which was already used in the first clause. And so you may have noticed previously that that verb took a dative object, which is indicated by the case marking on this negative particle. And in this second clause, it's marked in this case of this article right here. Another thing to point out is that because the article is marked for case, the adjective that follows it has a so-called weak ending. And so you would have that same ending on that adjective, whether it was accusative or dative or whatever case it was, so long as there was an article or a negative particle or something there to tell you what the case should be. Adjectives will take case endings if they are used without any other thing that could indicate their case. And so that's just something to keep in mind. You're getting the case from the article. So again, it's a dative object, and you're going to just want to probably resupply the verb in order to make this flow properly in English. And so you're going to say, rather, it corresponded to a simple longhouse temple in the Syro-Phoenician form. You're going to notice in this last clause that we have es gibt, and you will see here that this is in the past tense. Gibt is a strong verb, which means that instead of taking an ending to mark its tenses, it changes the vowel. So that changed from an I to an A. The other example of that in this sentence was up here as well. That changed from an E to an A to mark the past tense. Es gibt, you'll recall, also is just a predicator of existence. It's often translated as there is or there are. In this case, it would be there was or there were. And so you can just say something like, as there often were in the ancient Near East. And you'll notice I've just left this pronoun untranslated. If you wanted to translate it, you could say something like, as it often existed in the ancient Near East.